Welcome to the Mortgage Notes latest podcast series. We're sitting down one-on-one with industry leaders to learn more about their careers and to get their perspectives on lending and housing. Our first guest is Ed Pinto, co-director and senior fellow at AEI Housing Center in Washington, D.C. Scott Kimbler recently spoke with him about what AEI does and how they think the federal government should approach the national housing crisis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pinto. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for the opportunity to do this podcast.
Now, for those tuning in that have not heard of AEI, what exactly is it and what is your involvement in it?
AEI is a think tank, is the common description. It was founded in 1938, and so it has a long history. Its full name is the American Enterprise Institute for Public Policy Research, and its motto is freedom, opportunity, enterprise. And what we say is our middle name is enterprise, not government. We're looking for ways to allow the private sector to do what it does best, which is provide goods and services to the people of this country and the world, and doing that in a way that's based on market principles as opposed to government subsidies and government dictates. The Housing Center was, I co-founded it in 2013, and our goal back then was to try to see that we didn't have a repeat of the great financial crisis, which was centered around housing and housing risk getting completely out of control, which led to a huge run-up in home prices and then a huge collapse that followed in home prices and the financial crisis. And so we decided to start tracking mortgage risk at a very granular level, loan by loan, as they got originated, based on the experience that we actually saw in the great financial crisis, the run-up to the great financial crisis. My background is I've been in housing finance my entire career. This is my 51st year, and I started at the Michigan State Housing Development Authority back in the mid-'70s. But during the 80s, I was chief credit officer at Fannie Mae, and so I really knew how risk worked and what loans are risky and what loans weren't risky. And I knew that didn't change over time and that you could actually create a tracking mechanism to track that risk and the buildup of risk. And so that's what we set out to do in 2013. Since then, we've expanded to all facets of housing and housing finance. We focus on supply and demand, house prices. We focus on new construction. We focus on how to add to housing supply. And so we publish a wealth of information that's all put out for free for public use to explain and track what's going on in the housing market.
Now, from a personal standpoint, why did you choose this particular path in finance? Very few people actually start looking at mathematics and housing trends and say, wow, that's what I want to do. But you've been doing this for a little over 5 decades now. What personally brought you to this decision to pursue things in that direction?
Well, I've always had an interest in numbers and been good at numbers. I've always had an interest in data. And housing finance combine those two things. I'm an attorney by training. I have my law degree from Indiana University. But I started working on housing actually in law school. I drafted an ordinance that got passed by the Bloomington City Council and signed by the mayor back in 1975, a housing ordinance. And so I was interested in housing even in law school. But then when I started looking for my first job out of law school, the first job happened to be at the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. I had this interest in housing. I became an attorney there. Very quickly, after about 3 years, I became the general counsel of the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. And that allowed me to get involved much more in policy. And I've always had an interest also in policy in addition to numbers and data. And that very directly led to my going to Fannie Mae in 1984, where I was Vice President of Negotiated Transactions, and I was head of marketing and product management. And then after another year or two, I became Executive Vice President and Chief Credit Officer for Fannie Mae, which was the largest investor in mortgages in the world at that point. It still is. And so that gave me a lot of experience in housing finance. And eventually, in 2010, I ended up at AEI as a scholar and started working academically in the housing area. And by 2013, set up the Housing Center.
What makes finance personal for you?
Well, I basically view it as a way to help people. Everyone needs a home, right? If they don't have a home, they're called homeless. And the question is, how do we make it without using government subsidies? Because government subsidies never solve the problem. I don't know of one thing that's been solved with government subsidies. And so the market can create prosperity. And so the challenge is, how do we have the housing market have the best opportunity it can to create prosperity, which in the housing area means having owner-occupied and rental housing available in quantities and at prices that are generally affordable. The metric that we use is what's the median house price to median income in an area or in the country. In the United States today, that ratio is, I think it's about 4.2, meaning across the entire country, the median house price is 4.2 times what the median income is. Affordable would be 3 times or less. And we used to be affordable back in the 1960s up until the early 1970s that we had affordable housing. But we got rid of it for a lot of different reasons, and including largely government action, both in terms of zoning, land use, and the federal government's very good at goosing demand, very poor at adding supply. And so these are all things that I enjoy because they make life better. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And part of the pursuit of happiness is having a home, owning property. That's all part of it.
And what makes you excited about what you do? There are many conferences of AEI that I've zoomed into, and you and Tobias present a whole wealth of information from practically every angle of the home finance market. What excites you about what you do?
What excites me is that I learn something new every day. Again, I've been doing this for more than 50 years, but I wake up every morning and go, boy, what am I going to find today? The motto I've set for the Housing Center is we turn data into information, information into knowledge, knowledge into action. And it's taking that data and information and actually learning something from it. What's that knowledge? What's driving the market? Why are house prices acting the way they're acting? Why is risk building? Why are these things happening? Why is housing supply not growing? Why are house prices going up faster than incomes? These are all the things we wrestle with literally every day, and we're creating new knowledge every day. Every day, Tobias and I talk many times over the course of the day. We have 7 analysts and managers that work for us, and we're all doing the same thing, just trying to figure out how we can figure out what's going on in the housing market, track new things, create new knowledge, and use that knowledge to then suggest policies and market approaches that will help address the problems we face in housing, which are we don't have enough supply, there's demand outstrips supply, the government creates a lot of distortions, and if the government would get out of the way, the private sector would solve this problem probably in 5 to 10 years. Instead, the federal government's been working since the late 40s with subsidized housing programs and hasn't moved the needle. These programs don't work. I mean, I started my career in affordable housing, and I learned that they don't work. And what does work is letting the private sector do what it does best, which is respond to prices, respond to economic circumstances, in particular, to have land be able to be used at its highest and best use. Once land can be used at its highest and best use, then somebody could decide to build townhouses on that new subdivision that's going to get built, rather than homes on 1 acre lots, or build homes on 10 per acre rather than 1 or 2 per acre, build townhomes at 20 or 25 per acre. That's a decision that the private sector should be making, not planners and government officials. And if we had that situation where the market were making those decisions, again, we wouldn't have a housing problem, just like we don't have a computer problem, we don't have a cell phone problem, we don't have a clothing problem, we don't have problems generally in the United States where the free market is allowed to do its things. We only tend to have problems in 3 or 4 areas, and you can tick them off: housing, healthcare, higher education, the 3 H's, and there are other areas, but those are the big 3 where the federal government has basically taken over those areas. And when the government says they're going to make something more affordable, as Ronald Reagan said, the 9 most dangerous words in the English language are, "I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help." And the government can't make anything affordable. It just makes it less affordable, and we see that every day in housing.
What do you see happening with AEI, or different focuses you may take or focuses you may build on that you already have going into the new year?
Well, that's a great question. We just today in our briefing this morning went through housing agenda for Trump 2.0, as we are calling it, and what the federal government can and should do and what they shouldn't do, and what changes should be made. And I was asked, if I were in an elevator with Donald Trump, what are the 3 things I'd be saying he should do? The first one is he should order the Secretary of Interior to work with the Bureau of Land Management, which is under the Secretary of Interior, to sell upwards of 800 square miles of federal land that is currently undesignated for any particular purpose, that we've identified that multiples of that amount, that 800 square miles. This is out of a total of 270,000 square miles that the Bureau of Land Management manages in 10 states, excluding Alaska. And so that would be the first thing, because we think that could lead to 3 to 4 million homes getting built on that 800 square miles over the course of 10 years. Secondly, there are many policies, regulations that the federal government has relating to energy that are particularly inefficient in how they go about trying to reduce energy. They do it in the most cost-ineffective way possible, and that should be changed. There are other regulations having to do with occupational health and safety and prevailing wages and things of that nature that could also be changed, that would directly impact the cost of building new homes and reduce that cost, which we need. And third would be to reverse some of the policies that relate to the making it very easy to go into default on a loan and then get bailed out by either Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, or the VA. And I have a saying that basically there's a saying that a religion without hell is not a religion. Well, housing finance without foreclosure is not housing finance. It's a entitlement, and all we have to do is look at the student loan program to see how a program that was supposed to make the federal government money when it was put in as part of the Obamacare statute ended up costing the taxpayers probably so far over $500 billion, and the numbers are still being counted. And so we don't want what happened with student loans, making it into an entitlement, to happen to housing finance.
Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Note podcast. You can read all of our articles and sign up for our daily newsletter at themortgagenote.org.